Steve here at Backroad Equipment, and we're going to go through the process of installing a Backroad Equipment slider rack on a Yamaha Tenere 700. Here we've got the components of the slider rack. This is the slider plate. Slider plate is in black here, and we also have a gray option for the plate, or we have a wider option. This is our 13-inch wide plate. We've got a 16-inch wide plate option as well. Over here we have our tubes for the slider rack assembly, and then we've got our hardware kit with our powder coated spacers. The tools we'll be needing for this installation are a T40 3/8 drive bit, a 4mm 3/8 drive bit, and a 6mm 3/8 drive bit. We've got a 10mm combination wrench. We'll be using the open end of that, and then we've got a 3/8 inch driver and a 3/8 drive torque wrench. Before we get started, we're going to apply some blue Loctite or 242 blue Loctite to our M8 fasteners. The first step of this process is to remove the OEM tie-down screws that are fastened to the subframe here. So we're going to use that T40 driver and remove those. The next step then is to insert the Backroad Equipment spacers into the Yamaha subframe cowling that you see there. So here we have the powder coated spacer, and we're inserting that in through the hole in the cowling so it sets up against the steel subframe. The next operation then is to install the left-hand tube on the left-hand side of the bike, and that's done using two M8 by 50mm socket head cap screws and two flat washers. So there's those two screws there are getting inserted into the tube, and then the screws get inserted into the spacers and threaded in. Now we're going to take our Milwaukee 3/8 driver and put a 6mm hex bit on it and tighten up those 8mm socket head cap screws. We're actually going to loosen them up a little bit just so we've got some movement in the tube. So just the back of the tube will move up and down slightly like we're showing there. That's so that when we put the slider plate on and tighten the slider plate, the two rails will align themselves. So we're going to move on to the right hand side, and using two M8 by 50mm socket head cap screws with the flat washers, we're going to install that right hand side tube. Again, using our Milwaukee driver with the 6mm hex bit on it. And on this side here, we're also going to loosen those screws just a tad so that we can move that rail up, that tube up and down slightly so it can self-center. So we're grabbing the plate here, and we've got 4 holes in the plate that will be used to attach the plate to the tubes. We're going to use some M6 by 18mm flathead screws for this. Those screws go through the hole and then through a slot on the tab. Now it helps a little bit to push the screw up while you're putting the nut on it because there's a limited amount of clearance under there. So to get the nut started on the screw, you'll have to push the screw up a little bit. That's what we're doing here, is pushing that screw up and then turning the screw into the nut. Okay, so now that we've got all the screws in the plate, we can put our 4mm hex driver on our Milwaukee tool and we can tighten those 4 flathead screws. We're using our 10mm open-end wrench to hold the nylock nuts. Okay, those are tight and the plate kind of leveled out the rails. You may have saw that shift a little bit while he was tightening those up. So the next step then is to torque our M8 fasteners that hold the tubes on, and we're going to do that with our 6mm hex bit and our torque wrench, and we're going to set our torque wrench to 18 foot-pounds and do a final torque on those screws. Again, we need to do right and left hand sides. And once those are torqued, then we can move on and torque the 6mm flathead screws. So we'll again need our 4mm hex bit and that 10mm combination wrench. And this time we'll be using our torque wrench, and the torque wrench will be set to 8 foot-pounds. Okay, so we've got all of the fasteners torqued now, and we can test the slider rack out. We're going to take our SKB case and drop it onto the rack, slide it in position, and lock the cam lever, and then that process is complete. Thanks for watching the video.